When you marry someone for money, make sure they don't know how to hide it. My name is Daniel Rivers, and for the longest time, I thought I had it all: a beautiful wife, a stunning home, and a marriage built on love. But I was wrong. My wife, Melissa, was in love all right with my bank account. The realization hadn't come like a sudden thunderclap, but rather a slow, creeping dawn, illuminating the landscape of my life with harsh, undeniable light. Each flicker of doubt, each dismissed intuition, had coalesced into an unshakable certainty. I was a man who built systems, who saw patterns, and the pattern of Melissa's affection had become glaringly clear. It ebbed and flowed with the tide of my financial success. I had met Melissa at a technology gala, a whirlwind of vibrant color and effervescent charm in a room otherwise dominated by muted suits and earnest conversations. She had floated towards me, an almost ethereal presence, her eyes sparkling with an intelligent mischief that belied the calculating glint beneath. I, a humble software engineer fresh off the successful sale of my first small startup, was instantly smitten. She seemed to appreciate my quiet intensity, my passion for innovation, and for a blissful, ignorant period, I truly believed our connection was profound. We married quickly, swept away by what I thought was mutual adoration, but what, in retrospect, was a carefully orchestrated campaign on her part. For years, I worked long nights. The first startup, a niche analytics tool, had given me financial stability. The second, a secure messaging platform, was where my true passion lay, a complex dance of cryptography and user experience. I was in my element, thriving on the intellectual challenge. I didn't flaunt my wealth. I lived simply, preferring the quiet satisfaction of building something meaningful over the fleeting thrill of consumerism. My clothes were functional, my car reliable, my hobbies largely intellectual. I poured my energy into my work, believing that true wealth lay in independence, in the freedom to pursue my passions. But Melissa, she changed. Or perhaps she simply dropped the pretense. The transformation was insidious, beginning with subtle suggestions for upgrades to our home, then escalating to relentless demands for designer clothing, exotic vacations, and lavish social events. Our modest, elegant home quickly morphed into a sprawling, opulent estate, filled with things I neither wanted nor needed. Every conversation eventually looped back to money. How much was in the joint account? When would my next investment mature? Why wasn't I more like so-and-so, who just bought a private jet? Her questions were rarely about my well-being, always about my net worth. The worst? She mocked me for not being ambitious enough, while spending every dime I earned. "Daniel, darling," she'd purr, stroking my arm with perfectly manicured nails. "Why are you always holed up in your office? Don't you want to live a little?" Other husbands take their wives to Monaco, not just to the local art gallery. Her words, initially shrugged off as playful banter, began to sting. They revealed a fundamental misunderstanding of my values, a chasm between us that widened with every designer bag she acquired, every extravagant party she insisted we host. The irony was a bitter taste in my mouth. She chastised my ambition while draining the very resources it generated. It was during one particularly galling dinner party, a cacophony of shallow chatter and pretentious laughter, that a cold clarity descended upon me. Melissa, perched at the head of the impossibly long dining table, was regaling her friends with tales of her latest shopping spree in Paris, subtly hinting at the vastness of my fortune, a fortune she clearly believed was hers to command. I watched her, detached, as she preened, basking in the reflected glow of my hard work. In that moment, I saw her not as my wife, but as an elegant, predatory bird, meticulously plucking the fruits of my labor. The love, or what I had mistaken for it, evaporated, leaving behind a stark, desolate landscape. It was then that I began to formulate my plan, a strategy born not of malice, but of self-preservation and a quiet, simmering desire for justice. I realized that my financial security, the very foundation of my independence, was at risk. Melissa would not stop until she had taken everything, and if she intended to take half, I would ensure she only took what she could see. 5 years ago, I had quietly moved my serious wealth. It was a meticulous, complex process, a testament to my analytical mind. My early investments in crypto had blossomed into a substantial fortune, far exceeding anything I had imagined. I had been an early adopter, seeing beyond the initial skepticism to the revolutionary potential of blockchain technology. The sheer scale of the decentralized market, still in its nascent stages, offered unparalleled opportunities for discreet, secure transfers of wealth. I established multiple private crypto wallets, each secured with multi-factor authentication, cold storage solutions, and a labyrinthine system of recovery phrases known only to me. These weren't mere digital accounts. They were encrypted fortresses, impervious to traditional financial scrutiny. Simultaneously, I initiated the complex process of setting up offshore trusts under the umbrella of my tech firm's name. This wasn't about tax evasion. It was about asset protection and privacy. I consulted with a network of international legal and financial experts, meticulously navigating the intricate laws of various jurisdictions. The trusts were structured in a way that granted me ultimate beneficial ownership without direct, visible ties. The money flowed through various shell corporations, legitimate but opaque entities, making it virtually untraceable to my personal finances. Over $11 million. Untouched, untaxed, unreachable by any conventional means. I had lived modestly, even paid myself a low salary from my companies. This was a deliberate facade, designed to reinforce Melissa's perception of my manageable income. I explained it away as a shrewd business strategy, a way to reinvest profits back into the company for long-term growth. Melissa, uninterested in the minutiae of corporate finance, bought it without question. She only cared about the consistent flow of funds into our joint accounts, funds she swiftly redirected to her endless consumption. I wanted freedom, not flash. Freedom from her relentless demands, freedom to pursue my own path, unburdened by her insatiable greed. The knowledge of my hidden fortune, a colossal, invisible iceberg beneath the surface of my public finances, was a quiet source of power, a shield against the impending storm. Then one day, she said the words I'd half expected, delivered with a detached, almost bored air. I want a divorce. And I want half. There was no emotion in her voice, no regret, no sadness, only a chillingly pragmatic declaration. She looked at me across the pristine white marble of our kitchen island, her eyes cold, devoid of the warmth I had once believed them to hold. It was as if she were discussing a business transaction, not the dissolution of a decade-long marriage. A profound calm settled over me, an almost zen-like tranquility. The moment I had prepared for had arrived. I didn't fight. There was nothing to fight for. The marriage was a hollow shell, and her true intentions were now laid bare. To engage in a protracted battle would be to grant her more of my time, my energy, my peace. I merely nodded, a slight inclination of my head that conveyed acceptance, not defeat. I let her think she'd won. The divorce proceedings were a meticulously choreographed dance of legal maneuverings, a spectacle designed to extract maximum visible assets from me. Melissa's lawyer, a formidable woman with a reputation for ruthlessness, painted a picture of me as a distant, emotionally unavailable husband, a man obsessed with his work to the exclusion of all else. Melissa played the victim with chilling precision, her voice trembling just so, her eyes welling with convenient tears as she recounted fabricated slights and exaggerated neglect. I sat stoically beside my own counsel, Mr. Peterson, a quiet, sharp-witted attorney who understood my strategy implicitly. He presented my visible assets, the sprawling, now overly large house, the luxury car Melissa had insisted upon, and the dwindling balance of our joint savings account, a figure significantly lower than she likely imagined. Thanks to her incessant spending, I offered no rebuttal to her accusations, no defense against her lies. My silence was my most potent weapon. Judge Henderson, a woman in her late 50s with piercing blue eyes and a reputation for seeing through deception, observed us both with a detached intensity. I caught her gaze several times, and in her eyes, I detected a flicker of something akin to understanding, perhaps even a subtle judgment against Melissa's theatrical performance. She listened, impassive, as Melissa's lawyer meticulously itemized every visible asset, every piece of designer furniture, every expensive painting. Melissa's testimony was a grand performance, punctuated by sighs and feigned vulnerability. She believed she was winning hearts, swaying the judge with her victim narrative. I knew she was merely digging her own grave, albeit a gilded one. The final judgment was swift and, to Melissa's delight, seemingly decisive. She took the house, my car, the joint savings, $1.2 million in assets. Her face, usually so carefully composed, couldn't hide the triumphant smirk that spread across her lips. She looked at me, a flicker of contempt and absolute victory in her eyes, as if she'd truly robbed me blind, leaving me destitute. As the judge formally pronounced the divorce decree, Melissa leaned towards her lawyer, a whispered, "Finally," escaping her lips, loud enough for me to hear. But here's the thing, she only got what she could see. What she didn't know was, 5 years ago, I quietly moved my serious wealth into private crypto wallets and offshore trusts under my tech firm's name. Over $11 million. Untouched, untaxed, unreachable by any of the legal or financial mechanisms she now wielded. The true fortune was an invisible network, a digital fortress built on foresight and discretion. It was a testament to my belief that true power lay not in what you displayed, but in what you controlled, unseen. After the divorce was finalized, she gloated on Instagram. Her social media accounts became a digital monument to her perceived triumph. Photos of her new life, spa days at exclusive resorts, shopping sprees in Milan with bags overflowing with designer labels, luxurious vacations to Santorini and St. Bart's with a rapidly assembled entourage of fake friends, paraded across my feed, sent to me by well-meaning but slightly amused acquaintances. Each post was a carefully curated narrative of liberation and triumph, designed to underscore my supposed downfall. Hashtag blessed, hashtag single and fabulous, hashtag living my best life, hashtag no more dead weight, read one caption, ironically mirroring the sentiment I would later express, but with a starkly different understanding of what dead weight truly meant. She reveled in her illusion, basking in the shallow admiration of her sycophantic followers. I said nothing. My silence was a calculated choice, a continuation of my strategy. To respond, to react, would be to give her power, to validate her narrative. I continued to live my quiet, unassuming life, working on new projects, spending time with people who truly valued me, and enjoying the profound peace that came with being unburdened by Melissa's presence. I observed her posts with a detached curiosity, like watching a slow-motion car crash. She was accelerating towards her own destruction, fueled by the very greed that had driven her to this point. My days, now free from the constant demands and veiled criticisms, took on a new rhythm. I spent more time reading, exploring new technological frontiers, and engaging in quiet contemplation. My office, once a sanctuary from Melissa's superficiality, now felt truly mine, a space for unfettered creativity. I also found myself spending more time with Claire Dawson, my quiet and loyal assistant. Claire had been with me since the very early days of my first startup, a constant, steady presence, always efficient, always discreet. She had seen me through countless late nights, stressful product launches, and the slow, insidious decline of my marriage. She rarely offered unsolicited advice, but her silent support was a balm. I noticed her quiet glances, the warmth in her eyes, the genuine concern etched on her face during the divorce proceedings. There was an unspoken understanding between us, a shared appreciation for authenticity in a world obsessed with artifice. Our conversations, once strictly professional, began to drift into more personal territory, discovering a shared love for obscure literature and a dry, understated sense of humor. Then one day, a friend sent me her post. It was a close-up selfie of Melissa, perfectly coiffed, her lips curved into a smug, self-satisfied smile. The caption, bold and audacious, grated against my carefully maintained calm. He was nothing without me. I built him. The words hit me like a physical blow, not because they wounded me, but because of their sheer arrogance, their profound distortion of reality. He was nothing without me. I built him. The audacity, the sheer, unadulterated hubris. It was the ultimate insult, a public erasure of my years of tireless work, my intellectual rigor, my inherent drive. My quiet anger, simmering beneath the surface, began to coalesce into a firm resolve. The time for silence was over. The time for the reveal had come. That day, I made a post of my own. I didn't announce it, didn't prepare anyone. I simply acted. I scrolled through my phone, finding the perfect image. It was a photo taken last week in Bali, a panoramic view from the balcony of my new home. The luxury villa, nestled amidst lush tropical foliage, its infinity pool glinting under the golden afternoon sun, stretched towards the impossibly blue expanse of the Indian Ocean. The image was a portrait of tranquility, of understated opulence, a world away from the sterile grandeur of the house Melissa had claimed. It conveyed peace, freedom, and an undeniable, yet quiet, grandeur. It was everything she craved, yet could never truly grasp. The caption? Short, sharp, and designed to cut deep. Sometimes, losing dead weight is the beginning of real wealth. I hit post. The comments exploded. My relatively small, curated circle of online connections, mostly old colleagues, university friends, and a few close confidants, reacted first with confusion, then with dawning realization, and finally, with a collective, resounding cheer. Daniel, what in the world is this? Is that Molly? No way. I thought Melissa took everything. What did I miss? Then, the connections began to form. Someone, an old investor from my first startup, linked to a forgotten news article about my early, significant crypto investments, now worth exponentially more. Another, a former colleague from my second tech firm, recalled rumors of a discreet offshore financial structure I had established years ago. The comments section became a living, breathing testament to Melissa's folly, a public unraveling of her carefully constructed narrative. The internet, with its insatiable appetite for drama and justice, was working its magic. Melissa claimed he was broke. This is epic. Looks like Daniel had a little something stashed away, huh? Guess she messed with the wrong engineer. You can hide a lot in code, Melissa. The storm reached Melissa with predictable speed and devastating force. Her Instagram comments, once filled with sycophantic praise and envious remarks, were now a torrent of questions, accusations, and thinly veiled schadenfreude. Her friends, the ones who had flocked to her perceived wealth, began to distance themselves, their loyalty evaporating faster than a morning mist. Her perfectly curated world began to crack. My phone began to ring, relentlessly. It was Melissa. Her name flashed across the screen, an insistent, almost desperate plea. I let it go to voicemail. Then again, and again. Each missed call was a small victory, a silent assertion of my newfound control. Finally, the texts started flooding in, a frantic, incoherent stream of consciousness, a panicked unraveling of her composure. Daniel, what is this? What are you doing to me? Everyone is talking. You're ruining my life. My reputation. Please call me. We need to talk. This is insane. I watched the incoming messages, a faint, almost imperceptible smile playing on my lips. I had waited for this. The moment of reckoning. The satisfaction was profound, not vengeful, but deeply, calmly fulfilling. Finally, I answered her call. Her voice was shrill, laced with a desperate, unfamiliar edge. The carefully constructed facade of indifference had crumbled, revealing the raw panic beneath. Daniel, what is this nonsense? That house. The money. Where did it all come from? How could you do this? Her voice was high-pitched, almost a shriek, a stark contrast to the composed, confident tone she usually adopted. My voice was calm, utterly devoid of emotion, a low, steady current against her raging storm. It came from my ambition, Melissa. The ambition you always mocked. The ambition you told me I lacked. Each word was a precise, surgical strike. But the divorce. You said you had nothing left. You let me take everything. Her voice cracked, a hint of genuine, unfeigned terror creeping in. The reality of her colossal miscalculation was beginning to dawn on her. You took what you could see, Melissa, I replied, my voice even, steady, unwavering. You never bothered to look beyond the surface, did you? You only ever cared about what was tangible, what could be flaunted. You never understood the true nature of wealth. But we were married. I'm entitled. I should have half of that. It's not fair. The tears were audible now, real tears, not the performative sobs she used to deploy to manipulate. They were tears of genuine loss, of shattered illusion, of desperate regret. Fair. I scoffed, a dry, humorless sound that conveyed a lifetime of accumulated grievances. Was it fair when you mocked my work? When you spent every dime I earned while claiming I wasn't ambitious enough? Was it fair when you gloated about stripping me bare in front of Judge Henderson? Was it fair when you publicly declared you built me? No, Melissa. This is not about fairness. This is simply the consequence of your choices. Please, Daniel. I made a mistake. I want to come back. We can make this work. We can be a family again. Her desperation was palpable, a stark, humiliating contrast to the smug certainty she'd radiated in the courtroom, to the venom she'd spat at me just months prior. She was begging, truly begging, for the first time in our relationship. I closed my eyes for a moment, picturing her, truly picturing the endless cycle of demands and criticisms, the insatiable hunger for more. I remembered the feeling of being suffocated, of constantly trying to meet an impossible, ever-shifting standard. The memories didn't bring anger now, just a profound sense of release. I'm not interested, Melissa, I said, my voice firm, unwavering, definitive. I'm not interested in someone with no ambition. I used her own words, delivered with a precision that I knew would cut deeper than any insult. twisting her weapon back against her. It was the ultimate emotional revenge, delivered with a calm, satisfying finality. There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line, a sharp, choked gasp. Then, a wail, a sound of utter despair and fury, a sound that spoke of a world collapsing around her. I pressed the end call button, severing the last thread of connection. I didn't hear from her directly again after that. My resolve was unshakable. But the grapevine, fueled by the relentless churn of social media and the gossip of mutual acquaintances, kept me informed of her rapid decline. Melissa, it turned out, had rapidly burned through the assets she had won in the divorce. The sprawling house, with its exorbitant maintenance costs, taxes, and utility bills, became a crippling financial burden without my underlying wealth to sustain it. She found she couldn't afford the lifestyle she had taken for granted. The luxury car, once a symbol of her status, quickly depreciated, its value plummeting, a constant drain. Her friends, the ones who had flocked to her perceived affluence, vanished as quickly as they had appeared, leaving her isolated and resentful. The spa days and luxury vacations became a distant, taunting memory. Her Instagram, once a chronicle of lavish excess, became dormant, then eventually private. The well of public admiration had run dry. I heard she had started selling designer handbags online, a desperate attempt to recoup some of her losses. The irony was not lost on me. The very objects she had so coveted, the symbols of her superficial desires and her obsession with outward appearances, were now her means of survival. She, who had once sneered at my lack of ambition, was now reduced to a hustler on the digital streets, hawking the very objects she had once bought with such disdain. It was a fitting, if painful, comeuppance. Daniel, on the other hand, thrived. His new life in Bali was everything he had envisioned: peaceful, fulfilling, and authentic. He spent his mornings meditating as the sun rose over the ocean, his afternoons working on cutting-edge AI projects that truly challenged him, and his evenings enjoying the vibrant local culture. He continued to invest wisely, not driven by greed, but by a desire for true financial independence and the ability to pursue his passions without compromise. The tranquility of the island, the warmth of the Balinese people, and the genuine connections he forged became the true luxuries of his existence. And Claire had visited him in Bali, initially for work, to help him set up his new home office and streamline his offshore operations. But the professional boundaries had blurred, softened by the shared laughter, the quiet understanding, the unspoken connection that had blossomed between them. She was his confidant, his intellectual equal, and his steadfast supporter. One evening, as they sat on the veranda, watching the sunset paint the sky in fiery hues of orange and purple, she had reached for his hand. He hadn't pulled away. Her touch was gentle, reassuring, a stark contrast to the demanding grip he had once known. He had known, with a certainty he hadn't felt in years, that this was real, this was genuine, this was built on mutual respect and affection, not on financial calculations. This was wealth beyond any monetary value. He saw in her eyes a quiet strength, a deep well of empathy, and a genuine joy in his presence that melted away the last vestiges of his past bitterness. He thought back to the words he had posted on Instagram, the simple, powerful truth: sometimes, losing dead weight is the beginning of real wealth. He had lost a wife, a house, a car, and a significant portion of his visible assets. He had endured public humiliation and quiet suffering. But in doing so, he had gained something far more precious: his freedom, his peace, his authenticity, and the profound satisfaction of knowing that he had stayed true to himself, that he had outsmarted the very forces that sought to diminish him. He had chosen real wealth over perceived wealth, substance over superficiality. He closed his eyes, the gentle breeze rustling through the palm trees, carrying the faint scent of jasmine. He had learned a valuable lesson, one etched not in stone, but in the quiet, enduring fabric of his new life. Never mistake silence for weakness. And never assume you've taken everything, when the real treasure is what you never saw. The world, he knew now, was full of visible, tangible things, easily grasped, easily squandered. But the truest fortunes, the most enduring victories, were often the ones hidden in plain sight, intangible yet immensely powerful, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. And he, Daniel Rivers, had waited patiently, quietly, and with a calm, satisfying certainty. His revenge was not loud or boastful. It was the quiet hum of his new life, a symphony of peace that Melissa would never know.